Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Oh, seen it, done it. We've gone through it. We're used to it, but still sucks. Thanks for checking into the Houston Sports Podcast. That is the best one. You know it by now. And our live Texans-Chiefs postgame show, part of the Bleav Network. Joining me, contributor Tom Chavarria, host of the Bullpen Podcast. What's up, Tom? And I know people are going to whine about the refs, but I got to say off the top, the Chiefs are better. The Texans didn't deserve this game. They were at their worst in the big situations. This is who they are.
Couldn't disagree with you more. The numbers bear it out. Yes, there's a pedigree.
The numbers bear it out. In the fourth quarter, they folded. I said they were worst in their worst situations, in the big situations in the fourth quarter. That's not debatable. They were bad in the fourth quarter.
It's very easy to say that when a team is leading and a team is trailing, trying to track them down. It's a different scenario. If that game's tied, it's probably not played the same way. So yes, you're right. The offense got predictable. Kansas City defense looked a million times better when they were up 8 points.
Yeah, we're going to get to situational stuff. It shows that Bobby Slowik is an issue still. I still want him out of here. I'm going to talk more about that. I'm still suspect of this offensive line. It's not good enough. I mean, look, Stroud sacked 8 times in the Texans' last game. This sums up the season perfectly. Rookie Blake Fisher completely overmatched. I'm not going to panic about him long term. He's been thrown into the fire. He's a rookie. You know, that's fair, but it's an offseason storyline. But what do we talk about? We're talking about offensive line. We're talking about a receiving core that obviously was decimated, so they could have used some of those guys. DeMeco was in and out of the game. I don't know what was going on with him, but, you know, he was dealing with that situation. You know, the running game was better. I will say that. I'll grant that, Tom. But, like, this is a lot of the same stuff that we've seen over and over again. And when your field goal kicker sucks, hey, they're also better at field goal kicker. That's another thing that they're better at, among many things that the Chiefs are better at: coaching, offensive line, field goal kicker, over and over and over.
Yeah, the Texans need the kicker. I've not been a fan of Kaimi Fairbairn much this season. I know some people feel he's elite because he's incredibly accurate, and most of that stuff happens indoors. He gets outside, and then he's not accurate. Today, I mean, he really hamstrung the Texans. I don't know if he needed to kick the 60-yarder. I won't necessarily put that on him, but you just can't. You can't miss extra points in the postseason. You just can't. Field goals, I understand. Win, whatever, blah, blah, blah. However, there wasn't anything to that extra point, and it totally changed the game. It made a totally different feel. And I think all the momentum that the Texans gained by having such an awesome drive to get to that point was dashed because they were still down.
Yeah, Dyson, you know, he can't kick under pressure. This has been an issue late in this season. It's been an issue in other seasons. We might have ignored it because they haven't been in a bunch of situations for a big part of Fairbairn's career. But boy, you know, he seems to have this issue late in the season, though. It's just been bad with him, and we'll get into that as well. You know what? I've been a Texans and Oilers fan my whole life, both teams. It's been 45 years since we've seen a conference title game. The Texans are 0-6 in division round games. The Oilers and Texans are combined 0-10 going back to 1980. And Tom, one thing that's pretty consistent, all the Texans games were on the road, and nearly all of the Oilers were too. You know, there's one way to get out of this rut. It's like, it's much easier to win home games in the playoffs than road games, especially when you're a warm weather team going up to cold weather environments, which it seems like the Texans and the Oilers are always having to do that, whether it's Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, New England, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but you're going to have to win those games. That can't be an excuse. You don't get to choose.
No. You don't have to win those games up in those places. You can try to be better during the regular season, and so you don't have to go up to those places. Make them come down to Houston. Get them into NRG. Get them into the bullpen. Let's see what happens down here. I mean, we've seen it all season, Tom. This defense is turnovers. They make things happen. No turnovers today. It's easier to cause turnovers. It's easier to cause havoc when you're at home.
Oh, absolutely. In a perfect scenario, they would be at home. But that's not the way the NFL is. Teams are going to go on the road. I guarantee you, whoever wins this next matchup between Buffalo and Baltimore are not going to be looking at it like, well, if I was the home team, I would win. You got to go through Kansas City to beat Kansas City. That's just the way that it is. Yes, that is what home field advantage is. Yes, the Texans would be better if they had a home field advantage. Any team would. But that does not mean you can't win.
It doesn't mean you can't win, but it makes it a lot harder. And we know it makes it a lot harder because we've seen it 10 times between the Texans and the Oilers in the last 45 years. That's my point. I mean, it's that simple. Yeah, you can win on the road. It's just a lot harder in the NFL, especially when you're a warm weather team going into a cold weather climate. CJ Stroud, like this just in, he's terrible in cold weather games. He hasn't won. I don't know if he's won a cold weather game since he's been with the Houston Texans. He was bad at Ohio State. It doesn't make any sense, but he's not good. We saw the 2 games against the Jets, a terrible team. They lost those games, cold weather games. You're looking at me like I'm not telling you the truth.
Are you saying he was bad in this game?
No. I'm just saying it's, you have to.
I'm only looking at this game.
He wasn't perfect, and he's got to start winning games like this. It's just, you know what? You got to be awesome to beat Patrick Mahomes, and I'm sorry. That's the way it is. You got to be awesome to beat Pat Mahomes. And
you're right. As a team, you have to be awesome. Do I think CJ Stroud did enough to win this game? Absolutely. I think he was a warrior. He ran the football more than we'd ever seen. We saw that dude limping around. He took all the punishment, like you spoke to, still stood in the pocket, made throws. Like, yes, a team has to be perfect to beat Kansas City. A team, meaning your special teams has to be flawless. You can't give up big plays on special teams. The kicking game's got to be good. The defense has to be good. If you want to point fingers, Aziz Al-Shaair probably had the worst game of the season, and I love the dude, but today he was a big part of the reason the Texans lost. So if you want to talk about CJ Stroud, you can. Today, that's not my problem.
We're going to get into specifics. And I'm not blaming CJ Stroud. I'm just pointing out it's hard for him to win in cold weather. It's hard for the Texans to win in cold weather. This is about odds. And speaking of, stuff that maybe it's not odds, but like this is fun as the NFL playoffs continue. Underdog fantasy. And it's a great way to stay in it. I know it's hard once the Texans lose, but Underdog fantasy is a great way to keep in the game. It offers a unique approach to fantasy sports. If you've ever played daily fantasy sports, Underdog offers a simple pick'em style format where you can select players you believe will outperform expectations without the complexities of traditional DFS. And if you feel like drafting, which many fantasy owners feel is the best part of fantasy, Underdog offers simple drafts where you can select a squad and compete for serious cash. You'll find all the major leagues and college sports on Underdog, plus a user-friendly interface that makes it easy and fun to play. You can be a part of this growing community by clicking the link and using the promo code HOU. Find both of those, the link and the code, in the description right here in YouTube, or if you're listening on audio, you'll find it in the description there. And if you do that, you get a free pick and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Great deal for you guys. So go check out Underdog Fantasy and put their app in your phone as well. Well, let's dissect this possession by possession, and just a dumb way to start the game. Tom, this is like, the Texans couldn't afford to be stupid right off the bat. The Chiefs are better prepared typically than other teams. Reed knows what he's doing. And they start off the game, 63-yard return. Chris Boyd, oh my goodness, he is a joke. Basically throws the helmet, picks up a personal foul, takes a shove to his special teams coach. I don't know how many times I got to point out dumb special teams penalty from a guy like Boyd, who's second behind Tunsil with penalties. And this is for a guy who's not even a starter. And like I said, he shoves Frank Ross. Tom, Boyd's got to be out. He should have been out like earlier in the season. This guy's a joke, man. I don't understand why he was still on the roster.
I tweeted that he should have been on a Greyhound bus to Houston, like at halftime. Like
yes.
Regardless of what happened, regardless of what was said, there's no reason he's shoving Frank Ross. There's just no reason. And then the helmet thing, you got to be better. You just have to be. The playoffs are a different animal. You have to be collected. And that was the first play of the game. And I can't see a scenario where he's a Texan next year.
All right. So after that, the defense comes to the rescue after that awful mess, forcing a field goal. Texans' first offensive possession. Stroud hit Schultz. Big play into KC territory. Nice third down throw to Nico to the 14, but Stroud can't get the first down on the scramble, limps off the field. That was scary. He roughs it out in this game. You said it earlier, Tom. Gutsy performance by Stroud. Yeah, again, I was not taking a shot at Stroud. This is not about CJ Stroud. I'm just pointing out it's easier if you're in warm weather as opposed to cold weather. So Fairbairn ties the game. Was there anything on that offensive sequence in the red zone, Tom, that caught your eye? There's like one little thing for me, but I'm interested in what you have to say.
I mean, I appreciated CJ taking off. I think a lot was made about CJ using his legs, and I think you saw it in this game that he took more shots with his legs. I really just hope that he finds a way to find a happy medium, right? To be able to not take the punishment, because the shot he takes on the sideline, he can't take a ton of those, and he has to be able to find, okay, I'm going to get this 5 yards, or I'm going to get 1 yard. I'm going to do something to where I'm not going, into punishment or getting tackled where, my legs can be, underneath me weird. Those are things that I hope that he corrects in the offseason. And we still see him being aggressive and running the football, because the leg thing was a game changer throughout the game. And the last 2 games really, where he was able to take advantage of defenses and keep them honest.
I know fans just hate the fact that the Texans like to run the ball at times on first down. You have to mix it up occasionally. And I thought Mixon on first down left yards on the table. He could have bounced it outside. He runs into 2 defenders. It didn't help also that Shaq Mason, who was back starting at right guard after the injury, no Juice Scruggs. I'll have to look at the tape more. I'm probably going to come back to Shaq Mason later on, but he whiffed on a defender when he was pulling left. And it seems like a little thing, but Tom, Mixon and Mason might have turned that into a touchdown if Mason blocks it right and Mixon jumps outside. Even if Mixon just jumps it outside there, I thought he had a chance to jump it outside, and he stayed in for some reason.
It's really easy to sit here and say, well, he should have went left or he should have went right, when I'm sure the play was probably drawn to go that way. I think it's very difficult to
well, I mean, it's drawn. Yes, you're right. It's drawn to the left side. I'm saying he basically goes over left tackle, where I thought they had no containment on the right side, because the guy was, if you go look back at it, the guy's like coming in and coming right at Mixon. He's coming right towards the inside. He's coming right towards Mason, actually. And Mason just, I don't know, he whiffs him. But I'm like, when the guy starts coming there and there's no containment out to the left, that's kind of what my point was. But the Texans D, back on the field, they get a 3 and out. The officials, though, they call the rough in the passer on Will Anderson. Huge turning point. Just what do you think, Tom? I know everybody's talking about it.
So the funny thing to me, and obviously we're biased, right? But the funny thing to me is when you start hearing the broadcast team make mention of these calls. Like, I almost never expect them to do that, because I feel like they're an extension of the league, and the league wants to protect the shield. And, hey, we don't want to look bad. We don't want our officiating to look bad.
And Joe Buck hates Houston. He's basically comes to the airport. He spits on Houston. No, I'm just kidding. That's whatever. He doesn't hate Houston. But look, I'm going to be the bad guy here. You watch the replay from the reverse side. You couldn't tell from the backside. You couldn't see what Will Anderson was doing. What I saw, first of all, I saw Mahomes' head snap back. I saw Will Anderson come at him high, whether, everybody's going to disagree with me here. But when you come in high, there is the danger that you're going to hit the head. He's coming in standing up. What he should have done is come at his chest. That's the safe place to go at. But when you saw the reverse angle, it's helmet to helmet. And you see Mahomes' helmet snap back. And I know everybody thinks Mahomes an actor. We can get to the acting part later in the game, because he was trying to win an Oscar later. But in that particular situation, he didn't have time to react. There was no way for him to react and do like a head snap back. And, I know people say, well, that's the chest makes his head snap back. No, it's when you get in the chest, your head comes forward. then it goes back. But if you see the other angle, which was the only angle that you could really see, what happened? Will's head hits Mahomes' head. It wasn't like, obviously it wasn't purposeful, but when you're running in high and you're at the same level, helmet to helmet, and your helmet bangs into the quarterback's helmet, that's what they're going to call. That's what the officials are going to call. I mean, I know I'm going to get run down in the streets by Texans fans for saying that, but it's just the truth. Like, I want these guys to do well, but like, I've been a Texan fan since day one, but like that's what I saw. I mean, unless you guys are seeing a different television camera than I'm seeing when they're showing the reverse angle, that's what it looked like to me.
So first, I'm sure the referees would appreciate your service. They would definitely appreciate you bailing them out, because no one, I repeat, no one, not even the broadcaster official, thought that was a roughing the passer.
But when the broadcast official, when they were showing it to him, they never showed the other angle. They didn't show the other angle until later. They weren't showing the reverse angle. The angle they kept showing was from behind Mahomes, which you couldn't tell anything, but you could see Mahomes' head snap back, and you could see that, Will Anderson was coming in at that level. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was trick photography. Maybe my vision. I mean, I'm old. My vision could be going on me or something like that. But I'm just telling you, that's what I saw.
For me, if that was any quarterback, not Patrick Mahomes, they don't call that. They wouldn't call that if that was CJ. They wouldn't call that if that was Josh Allen. They wouldn't call that if that was Lamar Jackson. They probably don't call that if that's Joe Burrow. Those are just calls that he gets. And we'll talk about another one later that he got to that no one would get. And we'll talk about one that he tried to get that I can't see, if you're an official seeing him trying to use you like he does later in the game, how that doesn't piss you off.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to use you.
They have flops in the NBA. I wish they would start.
And we go for them too. When LeBron does it, we eat him up. Why are they not getting Mahomes like this?
Like I said, they make a rule now, though, in the NBA. They never seem to enforce it, but it would be nice if they did a rule like that in the NFL, because that was about as bad an acting job and as bad of like, and literally you're trying to get it because you're slowing down at the sideline, and as soon as you get touched, you go in the back. But anyway,
love the Fletch comment. Get to the Fletch comment, because as much as you want to talk about the other one, they didn't call that one, and there's no reason for them not to call that one. No.
8 sacks,
further down, the hip drop tackle.
Oh, okay. I missed the other one.
It's at the bottom. I'm sorry.
Hip drop tackle against Schultz was a no doubter that didn't get called. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
There wasn't a camera issue. There wasn't and they just didn't even stop.
But look, they just haven't called hip drops all year. They didn't call it with mix. I don't think they're calling it on anybody. They're just not enforcing the rule. That is not a Texans. Oh, the Texans ever get a call? Oh, the Chiefs get all the. No, the Bears got away with it. The crappy garbage Chicago Bears got away with it. They're not going to call the hip drop. That's something that they're only enforcing post. Maybe the post game or something like that. But
he'll get fined. He'll definitely get fined.
Incredible sequence, though, by the Texans D. Just got to say, Will Anderson, great individual effort on a TFL. Togiai, boy, he just keeps making some plays out there, gets the sack. DeMeco Autry forces a bad throw, so the Chiefs kick another field goal. Next Texans possession ends with Chris Jones badly beating Blake Fisher. And going into the game, Tom, I'm just going to say that's the matchup that scared me the most coming into this one. I was like, oh, they're going to put Chris Jones on Blake Fisher. They didn't do it a lot in the first game. Spagnuolo is a genius for a reason. Great defensive coordinator.
Well, they said Chris Jones was hurt in the first game, and that's why he did not look the same. At least that's what Troy Aikman was saying. I mean, look, everybody wanted to see this kid, thought he could be something, and that this line would be able to, do what it needed to do relative to what they had been doing. And everybody said, we get Kenyon Green out of there, we move some guys around. Now, I disagree with the Shaq Mason versus Juice Scruggs. I thought Juice was more serviceable than Shaq. But today, especially once they got behind, once the Texans became more one-dimensional, they did a great job in the first half about being balanced. And I think that's what helped them stay out of trouble until they got behind, and then they got one-dimensional, and then it got kind of like, all right, we're pinning our ears back, we're coming.
Yeah, John, we'll get to that second penalty later for sure, and you might like what I have to say more about that one. Next, Chiefs drive shut down by a Will Anderson sack. Great play again from Will Anderson, especially in the first half, couple of fantastic individual efforts. Side note on the punt, Robert Woods, really nice work for blocking his guy after the fair catch. It could have easily been down inside the 5 at this point in the game. Tom, though, I'm getting pissed at something that has nothing to do with the game itself, but the ABC production crew, if you're constantly having to mute the field noise and your broadcast team because of cursing, I assume maybe turn down the field mics, because it was annoying to just not hear the game for a few seconds over and over and over again.
That's something that I don't know how they fix. I don't know how they get that right.
Well, you just turn down that. You just have to turn down. We don't need to hear people's backs getting broken, and people in pain getting hit. We just don't. I mean, I lived a lot of my life without having to hear all that stuff, and it's not necessary. Yeah, I don't know. Anybody else? Was I the only one? Okay, well.
I think some people like the noise. I think so. It makes it more authentic, and I think that's why they do it. But you got to be careful with the audience, and that's why I think they have to do what they have to do.
All right, before we go on, I just want to quick remind everybody, if you're enjoying Houston Sports Talk, tell your friends about it, share our links on your social media. Thanks for all the comments. We're going to get to those as we go along. If there's a Texans angle you want to discuss, please let us know, whether you're watching live or in the replay. And to support us, give us that quick thumbs up. It helps the old algorithm. And of course, if you haven't done so, subscribe on YouTube and listen on the go with your favorite podcast app. All right, back to the action. Texans ball. The new and improved CJ Stroud pulling out the wheels again on a huge third down run on 3rd and 5. Ex-Texans 5th round pick, though. Charles Omenihu strip sacks Stroud. Shaq Mason picks the wrong pass rusher to block. Now, typically, I'm blaming the O-line. I'm blaming Shaq Mason, but great design by Spagnuolo, I thought, on that particular one. Mason recovers the ball, but Fairbairn misses the 55-yard field goal badly in that win. And Tom, this is me. I thought it was a bad decision by DeMeco, considering how Fairbairn looked on those kickoffs. I lived in Missouri for 6 years. Those winner wins, they're no joke.
I mean, I thought there was a couple of mistakes definitely made by the head coaching, coaching staff. We'll talk about. For me, this one didn't bother me as much, because if Fairbairn had showed anything all season long, is that he felt, I guess, more comfortable kicking from further distances. He was more accurate from further than he was closer up. So I thought 55 wasn't going to be a big deal. He obviously had the leg. He just didn't get the left and right thing down.
I don't even know if he had. I don't know if it got there, but I just have to go by what you're seeing on the kickoffs and what you'd seen before. And it's one of those situations where I just think the prudent thing is either punt it or go for it. But I just thinking like 55 yards for Fairbairn in a cold winter wind, when he could even get the kickoffs close to the end zone. When I was watching that part, I was like, he could not handle this wind. The wind is bad. And I don't know which way it was blowing, but it didn't seem to matter. It seemed like it was blowing more side to side, because it didn't affect him either way. He got kicks on both ends, and none of it looked good. And Butker obviously looked more comfortable, but he kicks in that stuff. Fairbairn, he's from Hawaii, so the only wind you get is like a little soft breeze or whatever. But the Chiefs take advantage. Kelsey, 49-yard reception, wide open. Tom, you mentioned it. Azeez missed a tackle. That play sets up the TD, but big pass play kills the Texans D. And Azeez, he had issues in this game. And, it's Travis Kelsey. We talked about DeMeco's decision on the kick. The other DeMeco issue was, I guess Travis Kelsey does this against everybody, but God, he was open a lot.
Well, I think like the idea, right, was, okay, I'm going to take Xavier Worthy away with Derek Stingley Jr. You saw Stingley get Kelsey a couple of times, and he fared fairly well. I think, however, they moved Kelsey around to try to target Azeez Al-Shaair, and boy, did they schemed that up great, because Kelsey was open, and then when Azeez was trying to make Kelsey a priority, he still couldn't guard him. And, I hated for him, because he had such a great pregame speech where he was trying to get everybody together and rally the team. And then he just missed tackles, and then he missed plays, and then he was lost in coverage. And it was basically Kelsey with a sprinkle of some guys, and that was their offense. And you just needed to stop him.
Agent zero, big zero in this game. Just didn't do what you needed from him. Leadership on the Texans. Some guys stepped up. Some guys did not. D-Jack says, bring back the Oilers at this point. It was the same stuff. D-Jack's only worse. You had to deal with the Adams family. Now it's Adams. You want Adam Strunk back here in Houston? No, thanks. Chiefs take advantage. Like I said, on that drive. Then after that, a couple of huge catches by Mechie on the final drive of the half, but then Stroud takes what I would call a coverage sack. Now, there were 8 sacks in this game. Like, it looks like, the offensive line was terrible. There's some Stroud coverage sacks were mixed in there. Then Blake Fisher gets called for holding. So after a run, Fairbairn's got to kick it into the wind again for 58, sneaks it in this time. I mean, after the first half, Tom, though, I thought, hey, it could have been better, but it could have been way worse right now.
Oh, I felt great. Given all the circumstances, I thought the Texans being down a touchdown, getting the ball to start the second half, it's probably the best outcome that you could have dreamed up realistically. Obviously, you could fantasize about them, running out to a big lead or, having a lead. But that game, the way the game started, you just felt like if the Texans were within a touchdown, they did a great job. And there were opportunities, they didn't make the best of them. So I was very excited for a second half that I thought the Texans would be in because they were only down a touchdown.
Yeah, back to Fairbairn. Fletch says, depends how he was kicking in warm-ups. I just saw every time he kicked the ball, it was not good. I mean, even the ones that he was making, they were still too close for comfort as far as I was concerned. So second half, Texans special teams continue to just shoot themselves in the foot. MJ Stewart holding penalty on the kickoff. Everybody loves Frank Ross, but man, his unit has had these penalties all season. We're going to get to Frank Ross a little bit later, but the Texans put together a drive after that. Stroud with first down throws to Schultz and Nico. 2 massive first down runs by CJ. Again, the legs, love seeing it. I'm fine with him protecting himself, not running around as much in the regular season, except maybe late in games and fourth quarters. What do you think about that, Tom? Is that something that maybe you don't want him running around a ton? Because he was getting himself hurt out there too. Remember, he hurt himself on the one play early in the game, but maybe in some of the bigger situations during the regular season. But otherwise, if he wants to wait till the postseason, he's just got to be better throwing the ball in the regular season. That's it.
Well, for me, I think the best solution to all of that is just to pick his spots. I think if he picks his spots where he, gets 5 or 6 yards just to show that it's there, just to show that he's willing to do it, I think that'll keep linebackers and ends honest. Whereas in the regular season, he didn't do it at all. And I thought he took some sacks he didn't need to take because he stayed in the pocket when he could have left. And I think that by leaving in this game a couple times, it really, one, it extended drives, but 2, I think it really kept the defense going. Okay, I have to play more contained than I normally would. And I think that opened up some lanes for him to throw the football a little bit.
Texans, though, overcame penalties, 3 of them in this drive, and Mixon finishes it off 13-yard TD. All of a sudden, Tom, at that point, the Texans O-line getting the job done in the ground game. And really, I thought the run game was pretty darn good in this game. It was one of the better ones we saw against a really good Chiefs defense.
15 plays, 82 yards, 10 minutes and 24 seconds. Probably about as perfect a drive as you could ask for coming into, this hostile environment, being able to methodically move your way down the field. I thought the Texans did a great job. They paid it off with a great run by Joe Mixon, who I know some people are going to be like a little, did they run the ball enough? Did they not run the ball too much? I thought Joe had a great game considering he was coming in a little hobbled. And I thought they did a really good job mixing Mixon in until late in the game.
Yeah, just as far as Slowik's concerned, I thought overall the way they mixed run and pass, I was fine with that. It didn't feel like the pattern was too bad. And when you look at the runs, it was 29 runs for 149 yards. Now, CJ Stroud had 6 for 42. That helped 7 yards a carry, but Mixon was 18 for 88. I'm sorry. And then Dameon Pierce got it in a couple of times, 4 for 10. Ogunbowale was 1 for 9. So that was a run game on this one. After that happens, though, for the second big game at Arrowhead, Kaimi Fairbairn chokes an extra point. Now I'm thinking at this point in the game, if it's coming down to Fairbairn, Texans are in trouble. Did not come down to Fairbairn, turns out. Not really. I mean, we'll talk about it in a bit, but then we have this lame personal foul, late hit on Mahomes. Everybody except the Zebras agree it was a horrific call, Tom. And I have no counterpoint on this one. It was just terrible. And, but after that, you still got to stop them, right? Tom, it wasn't like that play and then it's the next play is a touchdown. It's like you're still a long way away from a touchdown or a field goal, even after the 15-yard penalty. So, like,
didn't that put the ball on like the 18-yard line or something like that?
Was it that close? Was it that close? After?
Yeah. Like I get it.
I don't think so, because didn't we have the Kelsey getting wide open on Miles Bryant inside the 10?
I don't know if that was that drive. In any case, you're right. They should stop them. I think they should stop them on every drive, but it's really hard to do. I think that they don't need any help. The Kansas City Chiefs are a very good football team. Let me say that so people don't come in here and complain about, the way we're talking about this game. I'm not taking anything away from what Kansas City did. I just don't think they need any help. Like, they're hard enough to beat without that. Like, they get a little help at all, and it's damn near impossible. So for me, you have to be able to give credit where credit is due. Mahomes made an amazing play that I think we're going to talk about, but he's afforded that with the 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, but I'm going to point this out. I mean, God, somehow I'm like Chiefs apologist. I don't know how I got to be Chiefs apologist, but I'm not. This isn't being a Chiefs apologist. Okay, here's the deal. I've watched sports forever, and the great teams get the calls, and that's the way it goes. And if you want to beat them, you're going to have to beat them and the refs. The Chiefs, the Patriots, the Golden State Warriors get the calls. We know that, right, Tom? Golden State gets the calls. The old Celtics would get the calls. The old Lakers would get the calls. Look, I go back to the Oilers and the Steel Curtain and the Mike Renfro catch. They got the calls. You have to beat the refs and the best teams. That's what happens. It's just what happens in sports. This is not a Chiefs thing. And look, blame Taylor Swift. It's probably her fault. I don't know. They might just want to be on Taylor Swift's good side. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to beat the Chiefs, the refs, Taylor Swift, and now we got to beat Caitlin Clark. Tom, this is so hard. Caitlin Clark is now in our way.
To me, it should never be like that. I'm never going to be okay with it. I'm not going to play that's just the way it is, because that's not how I operate. I feel like they need to do something about it. They absolutely need to figure this stuff out. We should not be talking about the referees ever. The best referees are the ones you don't talk about. The ones that you're never putting them in the crosshairs. If they call a good game, then we're not talking about them. If they call it, for both sides, then we're not talking about it. The fact that it's so egregiously one way to the other, that's when we get to talking about it. Doesn't matter if it's the Patriots. Doesn't matter if it's the Warriors. Doesn't matter if it's Kansas City. We should never be talking about it. And for you to say, well, I'm just going to call a spade, drives me insane, because that means you're just accepting it. And I don't want to ever do that. I want them to fix it.
Yeah, I want them to fix it too. But, it's not going to be perfect. It's human beings. Bottom line, it's human beings. And this is kind of what happens. I mean, when you go into anything with high expectations for a certain thing, you sort of accept that, this person or this thing is going to be great because we've always seen it be great. And so you kind of give them breaks, not because you necessarily want to, but because you just feel like, this is the way it's supposed to happen. But I mean, you're right. I mean, like but you know what? Life's not perfect. And sometimes you're just going to have to beat the team that's going to get a little bit of an advantage. And the great teams, they tend to get those advantages for whatever you want to say about it. And that leads to Kelsey getting wide open on Miles Bryant inside the 10, and Kelsey wide open for the touchdown. And maybe you should guard that guy. That's I know Mario Edwards almost made the play, but Travis Kelsey, he can't get that wide open. We talked about Aziz, but it was also a game plan thing. I just felt like, I'm not worried about some of these other guys. I'm not worried about Stingley's guy. I'm not worried about Lassiter's guy. Like, go put 14 guys on Travis Kelce. Don't let Travis Kelce beat you. I don't care what you got to do. Don't let Travis Kelce beat you, because you know what? The other guys are likely to drop the ball. Remember that long play, Eric Murray? We didn't talk about it early in the game. Eric Murray makes a nice play on the receiver who didn't catch the ball. You know who would have caught that ball? Travis Kelce. So, like, you got to put like 14 guys on him and don't let him get that wide open. It was just too easy.
I won't argue that. I definitely think that he should have been the number one dude they should have been concerned about. If Xavier Worthy beat you, you tip your cap. If you know, a very older DeAndre Hopkins beat you, you tip your cap. Hollywood Brown, you tip your cap. The fact that they let Travis Kelce, who the whole world expected to go in there and do something, beat you, it's kind of bad on DeMeco. If I'm going to be critical on DeMeco, there's been times all year long where he's done this, where he's been, these are my principles, this is my core belief on defense, and I'm going to do it. And he let some guys have some monster games that you shouldn't. Those should be the first guys you stop, and then let everybody else, if you let everybody else get theirs, you live with it. But his philosophy versus mine is totally different, I guess. For me, Travis Kelce, just like you said, would not have beat me. Somebody else would have beat me.
Bill Belichick is like, I'm taking out this guy. You're going to have to beat me with everybody else. And the great defensive coordinators do that stuff. Next drive, Texans try to go for it on 4th and long. It was rushed because Slowik's offense always disorganized when the game's on the line. And Tom, here's my issue. Slowik is at his worst in big situations. And I'm almost positive he's coming back next year because DeMeco won't have the guts to fire his buddy. But when you can't correct the same mistake over and over, there's no hope.
So with that play, I'm glad you brought that play up, because I don't necessarily think that was a Bobby Slowik thing. I put that on DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans was in between kick it, go for it, kick it, go for it. Took too long. Last second runs in there, go for it. They'd call up a play. For the most part, all game long, they were on time. You saw them get to the line, 8, 9, 10 seconds left. I thought they did a really good job getting in and out of the huddle. I thought Bobby Slowik called a pretty decent game. Was it perfect? No. But for the most part, I thought the offense won in places. I love what they did with Nico Collins running through the middle of the field. I thought that was great. I thought that was something big from the last game. They brought it over and they used Nico in the middle of the field where normally he's out wide. I thought that was really good. I thought some of the run calls were really good. I didn't necessarily feel like Bobby called a bad game. And I know a lot of people are going to come for him, and that's fine. He's made plenty of other boneheaded plays. He probably deserves to be, replaced.
Yeah, and let me make it. I'm going to agree with you. I don't think it was a terrible game, but like when you keep coming up in big situations with stuff like that, and I know you said it, okay, it's DeMeco. Maybe it was DeMeco's fault. I sort of go back to Slowik because there's been plenty of these situations where it's not a 4th down, where it's a decision to go for it or not go for it from DeMeco, where they still look disorganized, where they still get to, the thing is, like, it could be DeMeco's fault in this situation, but I sort of default to Slowik right now. I mean, that's where we're at with him.
And I understand that, but for me, I think that if it was up to Bobby, if they were agreed on going for it immediately, and they took 30 some odd seconds to figure out what to run, then yes, Bobby Slowik should be the one to answer for that. I feel like in postgame, if they're going to ask about that play, DeMeco's going to say, I didn't get the play in. I didn't get the go for it in fast enough, because I think ultimately that's his call. 1st through 3rd down, Bobby Slowik all the way around. 4th down, whether to go for it or not, I got to believe that's a DeMeco Ryans call. And I think that took some time. And that is why that play looked so disorganized when the rest of the game, they didn't look that way. And the one right up against the 2-minute warning later on the game, we'll talk about that one too. I felt the same thing.
After the Texans D does its job, offense goes 3 and out the next drive. Was there anything worth noting, Tom, from that particular 3 and out? There's a panic throw on 3rd down, I thought, from CJ. I didn't know what he was doing. I mean, that could have easily, he had a couple of real panic throws. There are times where CJ has panicked this year. We just didn't see it last year. And there are times where I'm just like, there was no need to panic, in that situation. And he kind of looked at Schultz he could have got him short. Now Schultz might not have got the first down right there, but if you're panicking, you throw it quickly to Schultz, and then Schultz looked upfield because then he thought CJ was running, and then CJ throws up that crazy throw, and I was like, oh God, that's just terrible.
Yeah, this is something that I think obviously we'll revert to in the offseason, things of that nature. At points in this season, you saw what looked like a second-year quarterback, a second-year coach, a second-year offensive coordinator. And those are the things that if this team wants to get to where they got to where they want to go, they have to clean up those things. To your point, that for me there were throws that I thought, CJ was like, look, I gotta force this ball in there, and he didn't have to do that, or throwing it away, maybe taking 2 yards and a little bit of punishment instead of just throwing the ball away. Those are things that I think with maturity he will understand. I think right now the game is a little fast for him, not entirely, just a little bit when those big moments happen, and that's why you see those plays.
So they go to this last drive that the Texans really had a shot, and they get inside the 10, but Stroud sacked twice. Karlaftis killed the Texans both matchups. I mean, I remember damage he did the last matchup in some key situations. The sack that mattered, Tom, was when Schultz and Ogunbowale, who combined couldn't block me out there. They just showed just disgusting effort not getting Karlaftis. I mean, they just kind of both looked at each other when it was over with, and I'm just like, you guys, one of you guys needs to go for this next season, because I just don't think either one of them are good. Like, I love Ogunbowale on special teams. I do not like him in pass blocking situations. I like him, out of the backfield catching the ball. I do not like that. I want to say one other thing though, also about the protection for CJ Stroud. I didn't think the protection was that bad, except Blake Fisher did have some issues, like we said, with Chris Jones. To be fair, everybody has issues with Chris Jones. Blake Fisher is a rookie. So to me, I'm going to take that to the side. I didn't think the offensive line did a bad job in this game. They were really good in the run. I thought the pass blocking for the most part was fine. I give the Chiefs credit on a couple of those plays because I thought they were just schemed up while there was that play late. And they said, oh, Titus should have got the guy inside instead of the guy outside. Titus, there was too many guys coming. And that's Stroud having to do some recognition there. But it's also great scheming. Like Spagnuolo, he's won Super Bowls. That guy's really good. The Chiefs aren't just good because of offense. They're good because of defense.
Yeah, no question. The one thing that I would lay at the feet of Bobby Slowik, if I was going to point fingers, and I'm sure I will in the offseason for sure, was that too many times late in this game throughout the entire season, he asked Dalton Schultz and Dario Ogunbowale to block Pro Bowl defensive ends and or chip them or whatever. And they cannot do any of that. And the brunt of some of the sacks that I saw CJ take were because those guys are being counted on to block these guys that they have no business blocking. They're bigger, stronger, faster, and Dalton Schultz isn't a blocker to begin with. So that sack you talk about at the end, both of those guys were looking at each other like, I don't know how to block him. You block him. And Karlaftis just went right around both of them like, I appreciate y'all, and got what he needed. For me, I really hope that they take a long look into, a blocking tight end, someone that can do both, because I thought that was going to be
Brevin's going to be back, and they might be drafting a guy too. And I assume they're going to probably draft. We're going to have our usual Texans second or third round tight end in the draft, maybe in this one. But also, Tom, I want to ask you, like, how much of Ogunbowale and Schultz having to do that is on Bobby, and how much of it is on this is what Caserio has given him? It could have been maybe different personnel. Do you think he's done a bad job of giving him the right people to use in his system?
Bobby's got a whole playbook full of other personnel groupings. He does not have to use Dalton Schultz as the primary tight end. He doesn't have to run a tight end out there. Like, he doesn't have to use Dare. I think these are the plays that he's calling, and he's asking these guys to block because at San Fran, he had a blocking tight end, and it made sense. so far without Brevin Jordan, which I'm glad you brought up Brevin Jordan. I really hope he comes back healthy because that dude's a weapon. And I think he blocks better than most. When you have that guy who can jam, who can give the quarterback enough time to get to that first read and then, assess, you have those plays can work. I think with Dalton, with Dare, with some of these guys, those plays can't work because they can't give him the 1 second that he needs to be able to do what he's got to do, which the play requires. And I just think that he's got to know his personnel and no, I can't call that. I can call something else.
I think, though, the issue is with Brevin Jordan's injury, Teagan's injury, there's been a bunch of injuries with the tight end group. And that sometimes you're just going to get light. And they were stuck with Schultz. And Schultz is not good at blocking. And we know that. But at the same time, you have to have a tight end that can block it. He's going to have to do that occasionally. It can't always be the defense is going to figure it out if he's never blocking. And I think there's those situations where, I think Slovik's hands been sort of tied with the tight end. What I don't understand is Ogunbowale is not good at blocking. I keep saying it over and over again. Dameon Pierce, I don't think he's a disaster out there. Now, maybe they're seeing stuff at practice or, his brains or whatever when it comes to blocking, what he picks up or whatever. But why not have Dameon Pierce out there? Because Dameon can also catch out of the back. It's not like that guy can't catch. I mean,
that's the problem. That's exactly what it is. And I was waiting for you to finish. Dameon Pierce, they do not Bleav he can catch the football.
He catches kickoffs. What's the difference?
I understand. I don't understand why they feel that way, but for whatever reason, you will never catch Dameon Pierce in a passing play where he's the passing running back. And there was a play in this game where he came free and CJ looked at him and was like, I'm not making that throw. And it was one-on-one. And if he throws it off his left shoulder, he's got 5 yards. Instead, he took a sack.
I don't get it, but maybe they're seeing stuff that we don't, maybe it's stuff happened in practice. I don't know, but it just seems like Ogunbowale is so bad in pass protection that, and you're so bad on the offensive line. Beck actually made a nice block in this game that I haven't mentioned. That was another thing. They lost all the fullbacks early in the season. So that's played a factor in the blocking. I mean, they've just had some bad luck too. We can talk about the offensive line, but like Brevin Jordan going down, Teagan always being hurt matters. Beck going down. Wasn't Hairston on the roster to start the season? And then he was out for the year. Remember, what was the kid in camp that looked pretty good? We were all excited about. He was playing some tailback and they moved him over to fullback late in camp and he looked good. And then he goes down for the season. He's undrafted, but I thought he showed some promise and he was a guy that could have also done some stuff running the football too. And they just didn't have him as an option. So, the game kind of fittingly ends the way it should end. Of course, an ex-Texan just puts a nail in the coffin. Justin Reed, the blocked field goal. And here's the thing, Tom, this is what I'm so frustrated with Frank Ross. First of all, his unit sucked. I mean, they flat out sucked this game. They were terrible. Fairbairn, Tommy Townsend had a bad punt when the game was on the line. British Brooks, yeah, Fletcher's got it. British Brooks is the running back that I was trying to think of. Tommy Townsend had a big punt late in the game that was bad. We talked about the penalties in the kicking game. And then Justin Reed pretty much goes unblocked and nearly gets Fairbairn's field goal that he missed. And the Texans were mad that he jumped there. He did not jump. I slowed it down. He was onside. He read the count perfectly. I mean, Justin Reed did a great job with that. But how can you let Justin Reed get through the second time after he almost gets you the first time?
I can't put that on Frank Ross. Now, the guys that he has on the field, the same way that you said, okay, Bobby can't be held accountable for.
But he was unblocked. Unblocked.
I understand that. I'm not saying that Frank Ross called a play to let him through. The guys that are on the field need to be held accountable for that. I think Frank Ross is a good coach. I really do. I love his energy. I love his passion. I think, we've seen some plays that they've done really well. They block kicks. I don't have a problem with Frank Ross. Now, the level of player that he has to work with, I don't know. We talked about Boyd. Boyd's got to be gone. That can't happen. I want to say the guy that let him around the edge was Laramie Tunsil, but I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look. I want to say Twitter said that. And, you just can't do that. Like that's why you're there. Because if one of the guys with great push up the middle gets you, then so be it. The guy on the edge should never get you because literally he has to go so fast. So the field goal thing, I kind of threw that off to the side because it would have took a miracle for that to go and then them turn around, get the ball, and then score a touchdown.
But do you agree with me? Like Frank Ross, I mean, everybody loved how excited and crazy, and he's running down the sideline last week after that blocked field goal or blocked extra point. But overall this season, they've been kind of shaky. I mean, the penalties are terrible. It's hard to blame the Fairbairn and Tommy Townsend and the stuff that some of the issues that they've had at times this year, but the penalties to me, that's squarely on special teams. And they've had some bad moments. Some kickoffs, the opening kickoff, isn't that on Frank Ross? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, Frank Ross didn't throw his helmet. Like the penalties that you're talking about are bad players that they need to weed out. I think that you've seen.
I would think if Frank Ross was like, hey, I'm tired of this guy getting special teams penalties on me. Like, hey, Nick, we need to get together and you go find me somebody else because Boyd, I know he's playing a little bit more with some of the injuries, but like if the guy's killing you every single special teams, if nothing else, like get with Casario and it's like, okay, if you got to play him on defense, fine. I don't want him on my special teams unit. Find me somebody else. Get me somebody else on the active roster that I can use. Or Frank Ross has got to go, all right, let me see if I can figure somebody else out to use in this situation that's not going to do this stupid stuff.
I don't think that's how that works. I think the special teams gets everyone that they're given, and you're supposed to make them work. I think that when they build their rosters, they build them with the idea like I can use them in both roles, right? Like he could be a safety and he can play special teams, running back and special teams. But I don't think it's special teams and, you know what I mean? I don't think they think about players that way. So maybe I'm wrong, but for me, I think Frank Ross is doing the best he can with what he's given. All of those guys are primarily something else, and they are made into special teamers. And that's where I think when you see stuff like we saw earlier with Sims and then we saw with Boyd, like those are guys you just have to get off of your football team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's no question about it. But yeah, Frank's had some other issues. And look, penalties, guys not doing their job. That's all part of it. I don't care what you say. When Justin Reed does not get blocked twice, that's an issue. When there's not somebody in front of Justin Reed twice, and one time he blocks one, and one time he practically blocks or at least scares Fairbairn to death, or maybe it was, like I said, it's probably the win, but scares Fairbairn to death. I mean, look, when the special teams don't do well, they don't go, well, it's all the guy's fault that on special teams. No, the guy that's going to take the brunt of that, with Bobby Slowik, hey, we stopped making excuses for Bobby Slowik at some point. And it's the same thing with me with Frank Ross. He's got to be better. And, Frank Ross has got a lot more stuff as far as on the good side of him over the years. So I'm not like, get rid of Frank Ross, but like Frank, you got to get these guys to be better next year. And the penalties, that's one of the reasons the Texans are one of the most penalized teams in the NFL is special teams. It's their offensive line. It's Laramie, Mr. Penalty Tunsil is definitely a part of it, but that special teams, too many penalties. And, the better teams, they just don't have those stupid mistakes. Those are killer ones. You can't just give away 10 or 15 yards to start a possession every time, either way, defense or offense.
No, I agree. But I think that ownership should be on some of those players and not on Frank Ross. Like, I really do.
Well, yeah, and I've already said, like, one guy should not be back next year. Should have been gone at halftime. I'm looking in, social media right now and post-game, and he apologized for it. He said, I shouldn't have done it, blah, blah, blah. He apologized for the shove. DeMeco said the helmet thing is not how we teach our guys. And it's like, well, DeMeco keeps saying this is not the Texans way. This is not how we teach our guys. But DeMeco, 2 years in a row, you're top 5 in penalties. So whatever you're teaching them, they're not listening, and you're not doing a good enough job teaching because the penalties are just out of control. I mean, it doesn't stop, week in and week out. And they even had, I thought, too many penalties last week against the Chargers. Got away with it, but it's just too much. and you make your job a lot easier. And the Chiefs, for whatever you think about the Chiefs, the officials level, they don't do a lot of the stupid stuff. They don't do a lot of the stupid penalties. They only had a couple penalties in this game. Everybody's, they hold or whatever. They get away. Everybody gets away with holding penalties. That's the NFL. You could point that out with everybody. But like let me just put it this way. Forget the Chiefs. The Ravens, they don't make these stupid penalties. That's why John Harbaugh's a great coach year in and year out. They do this stuff well. And so this is what's got to get corrected for next year. Frank Ross has got to be better. DeMeco's got to be better. And Bobby has got to be somebody else named.
He's got to be a Jets head coach.
He's got to be gone, but I don't think he will be. Maybe Strausser gets the axe, but I wonder. I don't know. I don't like at some point. Tom, somebody's got to be held accountable. Like,
I think they will. But you also have to pump your brakes too.
Was Boyd held accountable? He's still out there committing penalties.
I don't know if he still has a job when the season ends. We'll see.
He shouldn't have had I just said it though. He shouldn't have. We know going into this week. I've been talking about Boyd all year, the penalties and only does the special teams. It's not like he's out there the rest of the time much in the game. Until recently, he wasn't playing at all in the secondary. And still like 6-7 penalties for a special teams guy. That's it.
I understand. And again, this is where I feel like you've made mention of it all season long. And I've always said, well, that's in season. I don't think they're going to go run out and pull somebody off the street and try to train them and get them on calls and playbooks and things of that nature. Now it is off season. Now I expect to see some of those things that you want addressed. And if they don't, then you hold Caserio and Slowik and all these guys accountable going, why did you keep this guy when this guy was terrible for you all season long? Obviously, they're going to have plenty of time to think about it now.
Future Man says, I'm still stunned that they played this well with no Tank. I saw Baltimore 2.0 coming today. I thought they would be in this game most of the game. I knew what was coming. The fourth quarter has been their kryptonite all season. They just don't finish games well, and the Chiefs finish the games great. So what do you expect towards the end of the game? Texans are who we thought they were, says Tony G. 14 points won't cut it. I agree with that. Offense just got to be better. They're not elite yet, he says. When I look at this game, it's just a lot of it's just kind of a microcosm of the season for me, Tom. I mean, again, I said off the top, I just some of the similar issues that they've had, and there's stuff that they've got to fix in this offseason. And CJ Stroud, he's got to help himself too. We talk about the offensive line, but I'm going to go back to the fact that he's got to get rid of the ball quicker at times. He's got to not take sacks, because when you take sacks, it's not just that you're taking a sack, you're taking a hit, and it takes a toll. And Tom Brady he would do anything not to take a sack. He would just get rid of the ball like as quickly as he could. He didn't see what he liked in the first second and a half, and that's it. And Tom also, had a really good idea of like, oh, they're sending guys or they're not sending guys. And CJ's got to get better at that. He's got to be able to recognize when, a bunch of guys, there was a play in the game that I thought was good on CJ. Guy came in untouched, and it was Hutch's guy, and he tried to throw it to Hutch. He was just a little behind Hutch. Hutch got one hand on it, but I don't think Hutch could have made that catch. But at least CJ saw that right there. That's the stuff that he's been a little bit better at late in the year, but that's the stuff he's really got to improve on going into next year.
Tom Brady was sacked 41 times in his second season. So it can happen. And then it got better and better and better and better. And I can't stress this enough. I'm upset. I wanted the Texans to win this game. I firmly believe the Texans could have won this game. However, I am incredibly excited about what they have and what they're building in year two. Like I don't want anybody to be misconstrued. There are people that are like, tear this thing down, send this guy that way, get this guy that way. They're not good. They're frauds. You're seeing all of it. People are going through their feelings on social media. This is year two of DeMeco, of CJ, And it may be of Bobby. We don't know. Maybe he'll be back. And these are guys that, they're going to have to grow. And the growing pains we're going to have to live with. And yes, you could look at Josh Allen, or you could look at Patrick Mahomes, or you could look at Lamar Allen. Only one of those guys was able to get it done immediately. Josh Allen was not good. Josh Allen lost to this Houston Texans team in the playoffs. Not this Texan team, but a Houston Texan team. Lamar Jackson lost a bunch before he got his stuff together. So for a lot of people that want to, nitpick, sure, go ahead. But at the same time, I'm super excited for what I think they will do eventually.
Our guy Garrett Williams, Houston Stressens, makes this point. He says, this makes me sick. One in almost every major statistical category: third down conversion, yards, passing yards, rushing yards, etc. Penalties and special teams were the difference. And that's what we're saying. And, you've got to get all the little stuff right to win games. The great teams get the little stuff right. And I'm going to point out, you can win those big categories also, Tom, but it doesn't matter if you don't get the stuff done in the crucial times during the game. In other words, you get inside the red zone, you get near the goal line. If you don't make those plays, you talk about yards. I mean, I would see Matt Schaub get like 150 yards in a fourth quarter, but then he would get near the end zone and throw an interception, or he'd have to be throwing all those passes and doing all that stuff because you're working from behind. Sometimes you rack up these yards because at the end of the game, you're going 80 or 90 yards because they're playing prevent defense. And they don't care if they go that. And then you get close to the end zone like the Texans did, and they give up 2 sacks, and they got to kick a field goal, and it gets blocked. So, that's it. That's the difference between the Texans and the Chiefs. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, normally you have like the good veteran leadership, and that's something that I think is important. And the Texans didn't do that. They went young all the way around. Where Patrick Mahomes is young, he had Andy Reid. Andy Reid had a wealth of experience. I think you talk about Spagnuolo having a wealth of experience. DeMeco's a young-ish coordinator, right? I don't think we can compare him to to Spagnuolo in the sense of how many years coached and how many things seen and things of that nature. So I do believe that some of these mistakes that were made are made by young guys. Is it something they need to fix? Absolutely. But it'd be different if this was, for me, this was a team, this is year 8 or year 7, and they're doing this and they're coming up short this way. Then you feel like they can't fix it. I feel like this team, with time, will fix it.
All right, you're going to love this one, Tom, and our listeners are going to love this one too. There was a roughing the passer call on Will Anderson, according to the league report. This is the question. Can you just take me through the call and what in your mind constituted the foul? This is the referee. I had forcible contact to the face mask area, and so I went with roughing the passer on that play. And again, that's what I saw as well. Agree or disagree? That's what I saw. That's what he said. Question. Later in the game, there was a situation where it appeared when you slow it down, 2 Texans players collide. Didn't look like they made any sort of contact with Mahomes. What was your perspective on it? I know it was a bang-bang play. I don't know why they're like giving him an out. I know it was a bang-bang play and it's going fast, but what did you see? Like, the refs do not need excuses like built in. Martin said, yes, absolutely. So he slid, obviously, and when he slides, he's considered defenseless. The onus is on the defender. I had forcible contact there to the hairline, to the helmet. What are you talking about? This is a guy, this is your excuse maker, Tom. This is the guy that well, didn't you see the little thing? I think I saw a touch right there. Come on, dude. Like, it's sort of lame.
It's what he has to say. Like,
that's a lame.
I don't know what you thought he would say. They're not going to say they screwed up. They're going to say they saw what you wanted them to see.
But
the NBA, letter of the law is.
The NBA guys come out afterwards and said, oh, that was, we look back at it or whatever. Now, maybe he hasn't looked at it. I mean, that's the thing. I don't know if he's even looked at it. I don't know if they let them look at some of that stuff before the game ends. And that was a call late in the game. So to be fair, unless he's got a chance to look at the replay, maybe at halftime, they saw the other Will Anderson penalty. But yeah, that I don't know, but still, I don't know. To me, it's like you don't even answer that question until you do look at the replay on it. I mean, that's what I would say. The refs, you guys need to look at these few here. We some of the head official referee back in New York or wherever they are. Hey, let me show you 2 or 3 because this is the ones they're going to ask you about. Trust me. So you need to see this.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe that's what they do. I don't know.
I don't know that they're doing their best job. And for me, that's always going to be a problem. Like we're sitting here asking all these players and all these coaches to be held accountable. No one's asking the officials to be held accountable.
By the way, Chris Boyd also says him and Frank Ross are good. I'm like,
okay. What'd he say? I hate that guy. No, he has to say that.
Yeah. We're good. We're good. Yeah. I wish I could. I'm trying to listen to you. So they've got audio of him. I would love to hear what he actually said in the audio. But yeah, it's sorry, Boyd, but I don't think that's good enough for me. I think in my Texans management, you're at the door. Just want to remind everybody to check out Tom with James Roy on the Bullpen podcast. In case you missed it, also yesterday I put up a Bob Uecker tribute with ex-Houston sports reporter Kevin Holden, who called Brewers games. He actually called Brewers games the last 15 years with Telemundo. So he spent a little time around Uecker. You got to go listen to it. It's fun. We shared some hilarious Uecker stories. I mean, Kevin had some like firsthand stuff. It was great. Go back and listen if you missed it. We should hear the news that Billy Wagner is finally getting into Cooperstown Wednesday. I'm going to work on a Wagner special guest if that happens. If not, I'm going to have Tom bring his butt in here. But no, I'm going to find some. I'm going to get you a good guest and let Tom do his thing with his partner over there. You're still doing baseball Astro stuff, right?
Absolutely. Me and Susie, we're on Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Find that wherever you listen to your podcasts, YouTube as well. We're looking forward to FanFest and trying to see what these Astros are going to do. I saw an interesting interview of Joe Espada from a couple of days ago where they were asking about Alex Bregman, and there's no reason to ask him about Alex Bregman, but he's like, door's still open. And I'm like, no, it's not, but we'll see what happens there.
If Bregman wants to sign for the minimum $1 million, we're still open to it. Last thing here, I see Josh says Chiefs now 7-0 in Clay Martin games. Let me just say one thing. The Chiefs over the last few years are like, what are they like 60-7 in total game? I mean, they win all the time. I mean, name an official. They probably got a good record with that official. So I'm just, I don't think it's one particular guy. There's these guys in the NBA that are noticeably awful. We knew that who they were. We know them, Tony Brothers, whoever you want to talk about. We know these guys. Our old friend Angel Hernandez in baseball. There's not any NFL guy that I think. Do you know of a guy, Tom, that's just like you see that guy and you're like, oh no, this guy's always terrible.
No, and I want to be clear that I hate the way that the NFL does their referees. They're part-time guys. They're not paid well, but they're expected to be very, very good. So I think the NFL's got to take care of those guys too. When you get guys that are making, $10,000 a game to officiate $1 million players, I think there's a problem there. So I could understand where they're like, they only gave me X and these guys are making Y. Why should I be held to the same standard? But no, I don't have any names off the top of my head. I genuinely try not to point out things, but this whole season, it has been the running joke all over any social media, any sports, anything that the Chiefs have found a way with a little assistance, a questionable call here or there, controversial if you want to call it that, and they've won games, and people ask questions.
Yeah, you're going to have to beat the Chiefs now. I mean, it's the same story next year unless something happens with Patrick Mahomes. You're going to have to beat these guys next year. He was obviously not tired from taking care of a new baby this week. Unfortunately, Golden was golden and took care of things. And, Texans season comes to an end, sadly. But just really appreciate Tom doing this all year long. I mean, it's been a blast, Tom, coming in with you every week. I mean, we have some fun arguments, probably even more, we're even more argumentative, I think, post show. We probably should have had a, Houston Sports Talk after dark with some of our stuff. But, I love getting into it with Tom, and, I just really can't thank him enough for doing this with me all year. I've been going through some stuff with, losing my co-host, and his life has gotten pretty nuts, and so Tom had to step in and pinch hit all this year at the last second. He's done a fantastic job. Thanks, Tom.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. This has been fun. I love the opportunity to sit down and talk sports with anybody. Don't always agree, but I'm okay with that. I'm not gonna feel any other kind of way. I don't mind going back and forth debating. So this has been a blast, and I really feel like next year these Texans with a couple tweaks here or there. It's a different animal. I really think they're really close.
Yeah, it's weird with football. It could, stuff bounces in a particular way. And even with a team that's not had a bunch of experience, it's not like the NBA where you feel like you have to go through everything. But still, you said it, Tom, you got a second-year coach, you got a second-year quarterback, you got a second-year offensive coordinator. I mean, all this stuff you got to factor that in. Unfortunately, in the NFL, you can go, oh, we got to wait for all that. Well, while you're waiting for all that, all these other guys that are veterans that you have are under cheap contracts, that stuff starts to end. So really, and we'll get into it in the offseason, but I really feel like they got one more year, and then everything kind of gets all out of control because guys are going to be leaving, guys are going to be wanting more money, and then you're going to have to decide who to pay and where you're going to skimp costs and everything like that. And it gets much tougher if you're Nick Caserio at that point. But thanks everybody for joining us on the post-game shows this year. And again, keep up with our content. If you're just listening to Texans post-game, definitely got other stuff that we're talking about. Going to have some Texans guests in the offseason as things go along too. So keep an eye out for that as well. So again, Texans season ends pretty much where the Texans season usually ends. Divisional round, same old story, but hey, the future's bright. So hang in there, guys.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, you can support the show by subscribing on YouTube and commenting on the videos. Listen to Houston Sports Talk on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and Google. Don't forget to tell a friend and share our show on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.